Welcome in. What's going on, Bears fans? Adam Hoge, Adam Jahns with you after a Bears victory on this Victory Monday. Johnsy 2-2.
If I would have told you before the season that the Bears would be 2-2 at the quarter point, well, not so much the quarter point anymore, but you get my point.
Yeah.
Point. After 4 games, would you have taken it? Would you have considered that a success?
I would have said that was not best case scenario, but probably the most probable scenario. So yeah, I think you take 2-2 at this point.
Best case scenario, 3-1?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Texans loss was probably one we all kind of had circled as a loss until we actually got there, and then I picked the Bears to win. But obviously I think we look back at that Colts win or loss as maybe could have been a win. But yeah, I think this makes sense where they're at 2-2. Now, not to spin this forward too quickly, but Panthers and Jags coming up. Maybe a different conversation if you ask me that same question in a couple weeks and say, is 3-3 acceptable? But right now, 2-2, yeah, makes sense.
Best case scenario for you, 4-2. Got it. On the record.
Yeah.
Oh, I said
it is the best
for
case,
you.
And it probably should be what you are, but we got a lot of time. Yeah, we got a lot of time to talk about that one. Welcome in. Good morning. Again, Adam Hoge, Adam Jahns with you. We got the coffee flowing. I actually, believe it or not, here a lot of time. Do you actually like pay attention to what mug you grab in the morning?
I do sometimes.
Like sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I actually have a Taylor Swift with a cat mug here, so the haters will probably come get me.
It's cute, man.
Well, it was an accident, but you know what? We're just celebrating the Swifties today. DeAndre Swift and what he did on the field.
You're good at this game, man. You're good.
I swear to God, I didn't plan that, but it seemed like a good transition and a good way to keep those haters, the Taylor Swift haters away from me. By the way, Taylor Swift is actually awesome. So, whatever. Follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns. You can follow us at Hoge Jahns as well. That is our show account. And we appreciate you guys being here every Monday morning with us as we go live on YouTube. If you haven't been to our YouTube channel, you should be. Go check it out. Go hit the subscribe button. Even if you're, honestly, even if you're not going to watch it that much, you're just usually a podcast listener. You've been listening to pod for 10 years. Whatever. If you happen to have a chance to go to the YouTube channel, hit subscribe, hit the like button. Helps grow the show and support us. So we thank you very much. And vice versa, if you could check out the podcast, if you're one of our YouTube watchers, please go look up Hoge Jahns wherever you listen to podcasts and hit subscribe there too. The downloads always help. So thank you to everybody always supporting the show. You can also go to hoganjahns.com and get our merch, which includes one of my favorite shirts that Johnsy is wearing right now. Nice and simple. Football.
So simple, so sweet.
Yes.
Like running behind a lineman on the goal line. Simple, and it works.
That was my favorite play that I saw across the entire league yesterday. We will get to our likes and dislikes as we break down this game. And we also have your voicemails. Anything else you want to hit off the top, though, before we hear from, Bob Dabrowski? Toss it to Bob and everybody else.
Will you have 2 voicemails?
Probably. You probably get the before and after.
Yeah. That's Bob. I think we should start off with Shane Waldron just quickly because he was such a topic of conversation last week. When you hear stories about his meetings with his leadership council, when you hear stories about 6:30 a.m. film sessions with Matt Eberflus, it's never a good sign. As Mark Potash said on this show on Friday, it's a red flag. We've covered this team for a long time. Those are red flags, but it's how you respond to them. It's a long season. Something worked, something changed. It wasn't perfect for Shane Waldron against the Rams. There were some ugly play calls. There were some bad screens that we see every single week, but the run game worked. There were down the field shots taken to DJ Moore. The offense just functioned better. And I mentioned that goal line play, like even that in its simplicity, using your personnel better. It's progress. It's positives. It's only week 4. But I think Shane Waldron, for all the scrutiny he was under last week, had a better day, had a better game.
Yeah, no question. And I think, sometimes the schedule does you some favors too. The Rams were close to dead last in almost every defensive category. I'm not trying to take anything away from what the Bears did, but what I am trying to say is, all that talk, all that noise, the Bears have I think done a decent job in this week. I know Ryan Poles mentioned it on the pregame show yesterday on ESPN 1000, just talking about how he really likes all that dialogue. I think it's much better if there are issues, if there are any, kind of questions about Waldron's coaching to the players. It is much better to talk all that out than just sort of passive aggressively handle it behind the scenes. I'm talking about in the locker room, right? I'm talking about that type. So I'd much rather see it talked out. It seems like that's what happened. That being said, it kind of does add to the pressure even more, because if you do all that and then you have another stinker, another clunker in a game that you're favored to win, then that could start to lead to things really going downhill, which we've seen before in this city. So just getting the win with all that stuff going on, seeing progress, seeing Waldron make corrections, seeing the quarterback play a little bit better and continue his ascent, I that was important. And I think it was capped off what I thought was very important, Johns. I don't know if you saw the video the Bears put out from the locker room afterwards, the game ball going to Mercedes Lewis, who played in his 272nd NFL game, the most ever for a tight end. But then he spoke to the team, and that was the Bears put all that out in their video. And for the guy who was the dude that said earlier in this week, like, it's okay to coach us, to hear his message to the team and talk about that belief, it seemed genuine. It seemed like a very good sign, that's a locker room moment. That's not him talking to the media. That's a genuine locker room moment. I thought that was an important way to cap off, which was certainly a tumultuous week for the offensive coordinator, and just have some good things happen.
In that locker room, that same locker room where Lewis spoke, you heard from players after the game talk about how they liked being held accountable, how they liked being coached hard, how they liked their mistakes being pointed out in front of everyone. Now, I'm sure there's some embarrassment that comes with it. There's some pressure that comes with it. Nobody likes being shown things they're doing wrong on film. But after 3 weeks, something had to change. Some coaching tactics had to change. Something more direct had to happen. And I think the Bears got it. We'll see if it continues. We'll see if it continues to work, I should say. But for 1 week against the banged up Rams team, it's good. It's positive. It's progress. And I know what you're saying about the Rams, but sometimes it's not who you play, but when you play them. But the Rams were coming off a pretty impressive win against the San Francisco 49ers. I know you mentioned that last week a couple times.
Yeah, 100%. And they're well coached. I mean, the Rams clearly had the coaching advantage, I think, coming into this game. And that was another reason why I thought this was an important game for Matt Eberflus, because it's like, okay, you're at home, you're favored. Can you figure out a way to get your team to a victory in this type of game that you should win? And he did it. So, that's certainly a feather in Matt Eberflus's cap. I mean, he needed that one, and they got it done. And I think for the most part, other than, some of the things we will talk about in our dislikes, there were, some issues like penalties and stuff like that. There weren't any glaring timeout issues in this game. I'll have a small quibble on a timeout, but challenge issues, all that stuff seemed to go away, at least for one Sunday. So that was all good.
There was a Rams coach. I don't know why I'm bringing this up. I'm just thinking about like the coaches going up against each other. So from our vantage point in the press box, there was a Rams coach sitting on the bench during the game. I've never actually seen a coach do this, just relaxing with his foot up on his other foot, his feet are up, laid back, arms open wide, just chilling on the bench all by himself, watching the game. He's got his headset on. He's got his notes in his hand. I've never seen anything like that. Just the relax mode by the Rams early on, especially when they're moving the ball. But I don't know why I'm bringing this up. I'm just thinking about it now because I thought about it in the moment. Just how relaxed he looked on the bench.
And this is while they were losing?
No, this is early in the game when they're moving the ball well.
Oh, was it Sean McVay?
It was not Sean McVay.
That would have been funny.
Yeah.
He's hanging out.
I just have never seen a coach like that sit in the bench.
Yeah. No, that's funny. Are their uniforms, are those Rams uniforms as bright as they are on television?
They look sweet live.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like them, but like even on TV, you're like, damn, that yellow is like it really pops.
Oh no, I never got that feeling watching them live.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I definitely like this color scheme better than when they were more of the darker blue with the gold, like the Kurt Warner days. But I don't know. We don't have to get into that. I don't like the number font. The number font seems like what was it? Microsoft Paint that we used to use in the 90s.
Microsoft Paint.
Isn't that a thing?
Or Paint or
yeah.
We're showing our age now.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you know me. I'm not a uniform.
Word art is what I was going for. Word art, which was like in Microsoft Word. It's the number font just seems like they just use that to create the number. So that's my only criticism. Otherwise, I like the color scheme.
I like the jerseys. You know me. I'm not a big jersey guy. I don't track what teams are wearing. I'm just not into it. But I turn to Mark Potash. Again, go watch his show on Friday. He sits next to me in the press box, and I go, I kind of like their jerseys. I kind of like their look. And Mark Potash, he actually agreed. He's not into the jerseys either. He goes, they're just missing the white horns of the Rams and look even better. That was his suggestion.
You know who also might not be a jersey guy? Aaron Rodgers.
What do you do now?
As in New Jersey, because it's not going too well. They can't even beat the Broncos.
I did see him when Bo Nix has like minus 15 passing yards at halftime, and I did see Aaron Rodgers take another shot at his head coach in post-game comments.
Yeah, and shout out to Bo Wolf. Actually brought this up on our All NFL Sunday Huddle late last night, which by the way, you can check out as a podcast too if you want to look that up in the All NFL YouTube channel as well. We kind of recap all the action across the league on Sunday nights, but we don't have to go too in depth in this. But he pointed out, do you know that Cortland Sutton had 60 receiving yards for the Broncos? Do you know how many passing yards Bo Nix had?
I'm going to say it's like 35.
Well, it's 60.
Yeah.
He all 60 passing yards went to Cortland Sutton. Yeah. At least that's how it averaged. That's how it evened out, because I think there were a couple small gains to other receivers, and then there were some negative ones to others. So it just came out 60 and 60, and they somehow won that football game. So good job, Aaron Rodgers.
Bringing this back to the Bears, that's why for all the negatives that may have happened against the Rams, you still appreciate and kind of highlight the goods that happened in this victory.
100%. You found a way to win a football game, and actually there are a lot of things to like from it as well. We'll get into all of that next, but first, we got to get to your voicemails. We got to toss it to Bob Dabrowski, B-Man, everyone else, hear what their thoughts were as the Bears got this victory against the Rams.
Believe it or not, George isn't at home. Please leave a message at the beep.
Got any questions or comments about the Bears? Give the guys a call before, after, or even during the game.
Go Bears!
Boys, let's see if Caleb could continue to levitate above the garbage that has been the offense of this Bears franchise for as long as we all remember. He's levitating because he's just that good. Badass.
Hoge Jahns. There's maybe even, I don't even know, maybe a minute left in the first quarter. Shane Waldron. This has to be some sort of sick joke. All week long, they've talked to him. He's going to do things differently. Before the game, Jay Glazer, they're going to be more aggressive. The team told me more aggressive. You could not script a more Shane Waldron sequence. A bunter runs up the middle with a f***ing tight end screen that didn't go jack nowhere the first drive. In the second drive, we can't even scheme up a f***ing pass down the middle of the field when we've got 1st and 25. Undisciplined, sloppy team, horrible team. Fire Waldron, fire Flus. Poles, you have serious work to do. We are f***ed.
Well, it's the end of the first quarter. Not sure what was said in that leadership council meeting with Shane Waldron, but I am pretty sure he didn't learn a damn thing from it.
This f***ing team blows. Coleman Shelton is a sleeper agent for the Rams. Is this the first time these f***ing guys have played football? How many pre-snap penalties do you get before you have to take a look at yourself? Unbelievable. Play the game. Score touchdowns.
I cannot tell you how happy I am to see Roshan Johnson score a touchdown. Feels like the skies have opened up and the sun is shining on my face.
Bears just discover the formula for success. Punt, strip sack, get it to 3rd and 9, pass interference in the end zone, 1-yard touchdown run. Just run it back. Let's go Bears.
Hoge Jahns, Bob Dabrowski here, calling on live from Soldiers Fields at halftime. Boys, we just witnessed an absolute offensive explosion to end the half. Bears up 10-6. They scored 10 whole points in like 5 minutes. It was absolutely unbelievable, bonkers, off the wall type of stuff here. I expect them to keep this going. Offense just juggernaut in the second half, doubling down points per minute. That takes them to about 21 to. Defense holds down 21-6. Final score. Let's go Bears.
What a fucking catch! Whatever conversation they had. Fuck yeah!
King news, DeAndre Swift remembered how to play football. Bear down from Tallahassee, Florida.
Hey, Hoge Jahns, 8 minutes left in the game. We're going to see if we have a quarterback who knows how to win in the fourth quarter or if we've got one like last year. Let's go Bears.
Hey Bears fans, B-Man here. We actually looked like we knew what we were doing today, and my guy Jaquan had a hell of a game. Bear down!
B-Man is a happy little man, Adam Hoge. I'm very happy about Jaquan Brisker's big day. One of Jaquan Brisker's, maybe, let's just call it his best game as a Bear. One of his best games.
Yeah, probably, especially to get the interception at the end.
Get a sack.
And I didn't like the. I guess that starts our likes and dislikes. I didn't like the penalty they called on him on the sideline.
I didn't think he was completely inbounds, the ball carrier.
Yeah,
he is fair game for contact.
Yeah, he's at least half in bounds. There was no whistle, and you know what? At a minimum, like as a coaching staff, you just got to live with those penalties sometimes, I guess, because you're asking your guys to rally to the ball and play as hard as they do and have no loafs. Like if they're going to get called for a penalty in that situation, it's like, what the hell are you supposed to do? So yeah, good game for Jaquan Brisker. Absolutely. I'll start the likes off.
Okay.
We kind of touched on it earlier, but regardless of what happened last week at the goal line, I just love, if we're going to get creative, if we're going to get gimmicky on the goal line, please do more of what you did yesterday by taking your backup center and put him at fullback, putting the right, correct running back in, who should be your goal line back in Roshan Johnson, using 23 personnel, just old-fashioned get a yard. It's like we just went through the Eagles and the tush push, where it was basically an unstoppable play. If do gimmicky smart in this situation. And I love this Doug Kramer getting used in that. I thought it was I don't know if you had the same reaction. I was very surprised when I saw Kari Blasingame was inactive, considering he was healthy again. But we quickly found out why, because they had a different fullback, and his name was Doug Kramer.
See, I don't even think it's gimmicky. I don't even think it's creative. They're not the first team to ever use an offensive lineman as a lead blocker in this situation. To me, it's just simplicity. Using big men to move other big men. It's not using DeAndre Carter, all 5'8", 190 pounds of him, to stop a 275-pound defensive end. It's just a simple approach of using big guys, like even going to Roshan Johnson, your biggest back. It just seems so simple. It screams simplicity to me. Should have done it in week 2 or week 3. Obviously, they didn't have that package in, whatever you want to call it. Doug Rowe, Big Doug and Rowe, whatever you want to call it. It worked. and that's amongst my likes too. I almost said dislike. I like it. Keep it simple. Let other teams try to stop it. They used it again in the fourth quarter too, and the Rams almost stopped it, but they were downhill at that point.
But if you watch the touchdown, I mean, that worked exactly how you want it, because when the running back ends up falling on top of the fullback 3 yards into the end zone, that means you could have handed it off to the fullback too, and he would have gotten it.
That's what you really want.
Well, I hope that comes. Please, Shane Waldron. I mean, probably not next week, but I have no idea if Doug Kramer can hold on to the ball. But at some point this season, we need that touchdown, right? We need a Doug Kramer handoff. And by the way, that'll be an interesting little thing, because Ryan Bates comes off of IR. Is Doug Kramer even active? So that might be a package that they don't have every single week.
Well, next lineman up.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Dislike. I kind of mentioned a little bit here. I disliked how Jared Verse seemed to thoroughly dominate Braxton Jones. I love Jared Verse coming out this year. He was, as I say to Kevin Fishbane, he was an alumni of the Athletics' various mock drafts coming out of the draft. Outstanding game. It would have been better were it not for penalties in the secondary. Like he had a couple, I think he had 2 sacks, at least a sack and a half negated by penalty. Just bull rushing Braxton Jones all day. He almost stopped. He got through Cole Kmet to almost stop Roshan Johnson on that 3rd and 1 that I mentioned, with Doug Kramer coming in a fullback later in the game in the fourth quarter. He just had an outstanding game. He was everywhere. Now the Bears were able to overcome that, but to see a rookie do that to your starting left tackle, to me, was alarming.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Jared Verse. I think the Bears like Jared Verse too. Yeah. So he's a good player, but I get what you're saying too. I mean, it shouldn't have been as maybe one-sided of a matchup when, you got at this point, basically a veteran in Braxton Jones at that spot. So yeah, I that's a fair one. I mentioned I had a small quibble with a timeout.
So this is a semi-dislike.
It's a semi-dislike. It was but the Bears, right towards the end of the game, there was a small chance they were going to need their timeouts, but there was a world in which they might still need their timeouts. And Matt Eberflus burned one instead of taking a delay of game before that last punt. Now, it certainly worked out. Great punt. They pinned him back. They forced a takeaway. Game over. But I still, in that situation, like, Torrey Taylor can hit that same punt from 5 yards farther back. And it's just like a small thing where I was like, you didn't really need to burn the timeout there. You could just take the delay game and back up a little bit more. In fact, he even mentioned at 2 that he got a fortunate bounce there, because that one easily could have bounced towards the end zone too and been a touchback. So just a little small dislike. Otherwise, I did like that overall there were not timeout issues in this game. There were not challenge issues in this game. So as much as Waldron took a step forward and made some corrections, it seems like Matt Eberflus has too, from that game management side of things.
I didn't like, but I love the day that Torrey Taylor had. That was everything they hoped he would be when he was drafted in the 4th round. To hear the crowd's reaction on that 66-yard punt, like, the special teams coordinator would have been full of goosebumps if you were there at the game.
Oh, yeah.
Like, as it just continued to arc in the air and go and go and go. And there's the Punting is winning shirt from Adam Hoge, if you're watching on YouTube. Just an impressive day by the rookie. It's kind of unique talking to him, because there's been a few punters that have come through town here that we've covered. Draft picks too. Pat O'Donnell, Trenton Gill, Corey Taylor is just wired differently than those guys. Like, he is extremely competitive for the 5 or 6 snaps that he gets like every single game. And he had as an impressive as a day as I've ever covered by a Bears punter against the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, look, 4 games in, and you can already claim that there was one game in which the 4th round draft pick had a direct impact on winning the football game. So you got to like that part of it. And I also like what you're talking about there, how, when he said in training camp, I want to own the field when I'm out there. And his logic is like, only so many people get to actually touch the football during the game. And he gets to be one of those guys. Yes, he might be punting it away, but he gets to have control of the ball, for basically a second and a half, and then use his foot to control where it goes. And, with it, you can get into a lot of reasons why the punt game is actually one of the more important parts of the entire football game, every single game that gets played, because you're literally changing possession and where that ball ends up and where the field position ends up. Really, really matters. And you saw that yesterday with how good Tory Taylor was and where he put that ball and how he helped the field position. And that leads me to my next like, because, Johns, you're going to win a lot of football games no matter who you're playing. If you win the turnover margin and you win the field position battle the way you did. So no turnovers. You just took care of the football. You set your offense up with good field position when you did have the ball. You played good defense. I mean, that actually is complementary football, which we don't see. We hear it talked about all the time, but it doesn't really matter who you're playing. You can get through a game where, I haven't gotten through the all 22 yet, but I know when I turn that on, you're going to see probably a lot of too high safety looks that force Caleb to check the ball down. And the Bears did a great job picking up yards on those checkdowns. So Caleb did his job. And by the way, we can get into it, a couple really good throws in there too. But that is like the perfect way to beat a team like the Rams, is just don't make mistakes, take what they're giving you. Because honestly, the Bears' approach on the other side was the same thing. Stafford was moving the ball. Bears were trying to keep it in front of them. And then guess what? Hold them to a field goal and get a couple takeaways. Win the football game. And the Bears didn't give the ball away. That was huge. And the punter helped with the field position. Wasn't the most exciting game of all time, but it was a game that you walk out of feeling really good if you're one of the players or coaches.
I liked that the Bears had a 12-play, let me get these numbers right, 12-play, 74-yard scoring drive that lasted 6 minutes and 13 seconds and included 5 first downs and ended with a touchdown.
Best drive of the season, probably.
Best drive of the season. Low bar, I know. But it was an answer to points scored by the Rams. It was just something we haven't seen yet really this year, just in terms of how fluid, how rhythmic it seemed. And I think you hope it's the start of something, because the Bears' next drive, they went 75 yards and scored a touchdown. So the play calling, whatever adjustments were made, whatever answers they found, I like what happened in the second half with the Bears offense scoring 2 touchdowns in their first 2 possessions. Like, to me, that's progress. It's a sign of hope that Shane Waldron can fix this or get things going for Caleb Williams.
And speaking of Caleb, I don't just like, but I love 2 of the throws in this game. So I just got done talking about how he took what the defense was giving him. He was like extra careful, when DJ Moore didn't run that route perfectly towards the end zone. He knew he had that safety coming over the top. Could he maybe have floated that a little bit more, but it would have been riskier. So he just kind of zips it through. Bears get a huge field goal before halftime. I love that. But then when it mattered and you had to have 2 big-time throws, the touchdown to DJ Moore, if you look at the end zone angle on the coach's film, I mean, he's hanging in a pocket that is closing in on him. He's calm. His footwork's good. And this is another small shout out to Shane Waldron, who somehow gets DJ Moore matched up against a linebacker. You got to give the OC credit for that, the play design. And shout out to the linebacker. Covers DJ Moore about as well as he possibly could have. And the quarterback just puts the ball in a perfect spot, back of the end zone. DJ makes the catch. Really from start to finish on that snap. It's a very impressive play from your quarterback, from your number 1 wide receiver, from a play design standpoint, and from a defensive standpoint. Just good on good there. And that's a big-time throw. And then the one he put over the linebacker to Cole Kmet, too, which was a big-time throw in a big moment that the Bears had to have. Mixing those 2 big-time plays into what was otherwise, just sort of taking what they were giving them the whole time and not turning the ball over. I have a feeling they're very, very excited about Caleb Williams this morning inside House Hall.
I guess this is kind of a like and dislike a little bit. I liked his willingness to stand in that pocket as it was closing. So sometimes it turned into sacks. Sometimes it turned into contact they don't need. Sometimes he's got to get the ball quicker. That's where the dislike of this comes in. But the confidence that he showed in his offensive line, the confidence he showed in the play call, the confidence he showed in himself, to stand in the middle of that chaos that is going around him and go through his progressions. And like you mentioned, you saw it pay off with the touchdown catch to DJ Moore. Pressure was getting to him. You saw it pay off on that screenplay to DeAndre Swift. Right before the contact hits, ball is out, 27 yards later, DeAndre Swift is tackled. It's poise, right? What word would you use to describe that? I like that we saw poise in the pocket from Caleb Williams. And I don't think I've ever used that word to describe Bears quarterback play in a long time. And I'm serious. Like, in his 4th career start against the team that started to blitz him, behind an offensive line that has given up pressure every single week, to stand back there, knowing contact is coming, to take some hits. He did take some sacks. That's on him. But I like the poise that he showed in the pocket, the willingness to stand in there and go through his progressions. To me, that poise that he showed is immense progress going forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that is a good word to use. Poise. It's there. It's there. At least in this game. Now, my dislikes, the penalties, the poise in the pockets, 100%. Smooth operation the entire time, not so much.
Did you think some of those false starts might have been on the cadence?
I think they had to be. I think Mark Sanchez made a great point in the broadcast. Like, at some point when they're adding up the way they are, as the quarterback, you got to take responsibility for it. So I think it's probably a mixture. I don't know yet. Probably find out this week. But, sometimes does a guard just flinch? Sure. And that's on the guard. But something just seems off from the entire operation, that they're just not totally in sync when it comes to these cadences. So I just don't like that week 4, this still seems to be adding up. You want to have 1 a game, something like that. But especially when it's like somebody like Cole Kmet with 2. That right there just tells me, like, some of it's got to be on the quarterback too, because we're just talking about Mercedes Lewis, back-to-back weeks now, right?
Well, he had a couple last week, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these are guys that it really shouldn't be happening to. So regardless of who's to blame, it's just I don't like it, and they got to figure it out, and they got to get it fixed.
I disliked that the Rams seem to move the ball at will against the Bears defense. I mean, those play action looks for Stafford were just wide open. And I know eventually they got to him. I know eventually that Montez Sweat made a game-changing play. Jaquan Brisker made a game-sealing interception, but they allowed 119 yards on the ground. Matthew Stafford had 224 through the air. They did sack him 3 times, but they gave up a lot of chunk plays through the air. They gave up probably too many explosives and too many first downs on the ground than Matty Eberflus can tolerate. It's okay because they won, but we all know the Bears defense can be better. I thought Sean McVay definitely at times got the better of Matt Eberflus. It's going to happen. He's one of the best play callers of the game. And he's got Matthew Stafford, one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the game. But the yards, to me, like that's a problem. All the yards that the Rams gained were a problem. Now, on the other end of it, I liked that the Bears defense eventually stopped that, were able to hold the Rams to field goals instead of touchdowns.
Yeah, the only thing I say is I just think this is one of your classic Bears defenses where their whole game plan is we're going to let you slowly move the ball downfield. But what we're looking for is that eventually we keep everything in front of us. You're going to have a holding penalty. Get behind the chains. You're going to have a sack. Get behind the chains. Turn the ball over. Right? So it's like we're going to let you move. We're going to give some stuff up underneath, and then something bad is going to happen, and we can win this game if you're just kicking field goals. And I think overall that was pretty much what happened yesterday. Now, to your point, the drive they gave up after their first touchdown, that was like chunk play after chunk play after chunk play after chunk play, and all of a sudden they're in the end zone. You're like, well, that was a terrible defensive drive. So I'm sure they want that one back. But I always felt like going into this game, Matthew Stafford was going to get his yards. And he honestly didn't even – what did he end up with? It wasn't that
only
impressive
224,
when it was
but
yeah.
The Rams ran the ball well.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the most – you can plan for Matthew Stafford to get his chunk plays, his chunk completions, but you don't want the run game, the opposing run game to go off like that.
I like that Javon Dexter has 3 sacks through 4 games. There's not much more to say about that other than that's just a good thing. I don't think that he's dominating by any means, consistently yet, but it's still a significant step in the right direction. I also don't like. Did you get any clarity post game on what was going on with DJ Moore when he
ran the wrong route?
What? On the touchdown? That didn't happen?
And the deep shot towards
yeah.
Well,
I was talking about when he kind of checked out and looked like he was hurt.
Oh, yeah, we saw that. It looked like he was just winded.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's because just, Kevin Fishman and I gave him probably a harder nudge than he wanted in the press box. Hey, DJ Moore's coming off. And he looked like he was limping a little bit. And then he just walked straight down the sideline, found Shane Waldron. Next play came in, went right back out in the field.
Yeah, he was out there blocking like a couple plays later, and then it was the same drive he scored the touchdown. So I wasn't terribly worried, but I just want to make sure he wasn't dealing with anything.
How about this? I want to hear your thoughts on this. I dislike that DJ Moore's body language has become a conversation that I don't think is a real issue, at least in my eyes, at Hall Hall.
Yeah, I agree. For a couple reasons. I mean, one is, I think I talked about this yesterday too. It's like there's a lot that goes into these football games, and when things aren't going well, everybody's frustrated. And to ask these human beings to not show some of that frustration, in some of the highest tense moments with so many things on the line in the NFL, I think is just completely unrealistic, especially when the fans are losing their minds in the stands and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I think as a whole, especially in the social media age, read way too much into body language, get too many clips taken out of context that end up on Twitter in the middle of games. So there's that side of it. And also we're talking about DJ Moore. Like DJ Moore, his whole reputation is the opposite of that. And he's not a diva wide receiver. So I think he's allowed to show frustration as long as, and this is a point Alex Brown made yesterday on CHGO, it's like as long as you're not showing up your rookie quarterback, then, but I don't think that that's happened or come close to happening. And then I ended up seeing a clip this morning that I had not seen yesterday from somebody in the stands that's clearly showing Caleb Williams going up to DJ Moore, and they're talking through whatever miscommunication there was to kind of get it corrected. And then it leads to a touchdown later in the game. So I'm with you, Johns. I don't think there's anything there right now or anything to worry about. And I think a lot of people are just reading way too much or looking for some confirmation bias that, oh, DJ Moore's upset that Justin Fields isn't here.
That's what it is. That's what I think it is.
Yeah.
And I think he's gotten over that. I don't even know if it was ever really an issue. I mean,
I would hope that contract would help get over it
yes,
too.
Well, yeah, and you're not signing that if you're really that upset.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm sure the money is immensely enticing. But if you don't want to be here, you're not doing that. You're not doing that type of deal with the Chicago Bears.
100%. Well, I don't really have anything else. Otherwise,
I dislike that we're talking about another Tevin Jenkins injury.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I think you got to throw that in there. Ribs and not returning isn't great. And then I know you had one on Tom Brady too that you wanted to get to.
I dislike revisionist history. Although it's not so much revisionist.
In this case, it's like Brady doing it.
Yes.
So this isn't a new story that the Bears were in on Tom Brady. I had to go back last night and track some of even my own reporting on this because I was getting messages in the middle of the game, from reporters around the league too. It's like, oh, did you see Brady said this? I'm like, I swear I've written a story about this before, and I Googled it and I had back in 2020. So we knew the Bears were in on Brady. The reporting, Dan Patrick did some of this at the time. NFL Network reported on this at the time. And the reporting was that he wasn't that interested in going to another cold weather city. And it never felt like the Bears made their phone calls. It never seemed like that realistic of an option. But there's Brady Johns yesterday. Apparently I was close to going to Chicago.
2020 would be the year that the Bears brought in Nick Foles, who won only 2 games, and that was the year Trubisky came in at the end, the Bears to playoff berth.
Yeah.
The 8-8 playoff berth.
So they could have won the Super Bowl with Brady.
Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. So it's a fun storyline to talk about. It's 5 years later, 4 years later.
Well, what are you saying by revisionist history?
Like him saying he was seriously considering the Bears.
Yeah. I don't think he was.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, good for him for making some headlines yesterday.
Other notes I have on from the game. I did have this. I like the game that Matt Pryor had. Like if you just watched that DeAndre Swift 36-yard touchdown, Cole Kmet's block, Matt Pryor's block, Braxton Jones, Coleman Shelton, Roma Dunze making blocks on the second level. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to see things come together like that.
Yeah, I mean, that touchdown was about as picture perfect as you can get it in the run game. Good. The Bears were due for one of those. We'll just say that. And it looked great, and it's fun to watch too on film. So, yeah, Bears 2-2, Johnsy. Carolina Panthers. Do you know what the early spread is on this one?
3.5?
4.5.
4.5.
Andy Dalton Revenge game.
Yeah.
QB1 coming back to town. Nervous?
I'm trying to remember. So Mike Glennon his quote was, This is my year. This is my year. What was Andy Dalton's? Like, I was told I was a starter.
Yeah.
Right.
It was a little less convincing.
Yeah. Well, he got hurt. He got hurt against the Rams. Did you want to get to these super chats before we get out of here?
Wait, didn't he get hurt against the Bengals? The home game the following week?
I thought he got hurt on the road in Los Angeles against the Rams.
He opened up against the Rams. I think he finished that game. I think
finish?
he suffered the knee bruise on the sideline.
He did. Yeah, he came back.
And I think they were playing the Bengals, right? His former team. Making that up, I swear. I don't know.
All these Bears quarterbacks they run together at him.
I know. I can get an answer on this really quick. Let's go. That was 2021, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. 2017 win over the Bengals, week 2, September 19th, 2021. And then the following week was the disaster in Cleveland.
The infamous 9-sack game.
It's actually a monument there now in Cleveland. It's just Justin Fields getting sacked over and over again.
The crazy thing about that, what would you call it?
The disaster in Cleveland. It's a well-known. It's in the history books. It's one of Cleveland's greatest moments.
Just Matt Nagy ripping up his BU play sheet.
It's the revenge for the Cubs winning the World Series there.
Yeah. The funny thing is that the Bears actually, we all forget they won their next 2 games after that.
Yeah.
And then they had the 5-game losing streak. Then you really knew things were bad for Matt Nagy.
Yeah, they lost 8 out of their next 9. Hey, 2-0 against the Lions that year, though. Back when the Lions were the Lions. Also a fun game that year. The random Nick Foles start in Seattle. The day after Christmas when it was snowing in Seattle. And Nick Foles just went out there and balled out.
One of the best
250 yards into the touchdown.
Decisions I ever made was not going to that game on Christmas.
Yeah. That was a fun one. It was hard to get to the game that day because Seattle does not handle snow very well.
No,
but we made it. All right. It's going to wrap it up for
super chats, man. Get it together.
I didn't know we had super chats. Gritty. $10. We got a super chat from Gritty. Punting is winning. Tory Taylor. I guess we're calling him TT19. NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Book it. It's possible. I don't even know. Did any kickers go off yesterday? I mean, Greg Zuerlein had all the Jets points, but they lost.
Yeah.
I could see it. I'm all for Tory Taylor, NFC Special Teams Player of the Week.
Little tease. Big story coming up on him tomorrow on the Athletic.com.
Wow. Did you go to Australia?
Nah, I've just been saving it until he actually kicked this well.
Yeah, last week was not the best week to run that story.
Punted.
He was mad about last week, apparently.
Oh, yeah. It's part of it.
Yeah. Sam Burns, $10. Hey, fellas, I noticed you ask yourselves great questions that could easily be answered by coaches in media meetings, but those are never asked. Are there rule guidelines you have to follow? Thanks.
Ooh, media question. I think you probably hear some of these questions that are asked by media members like ourselves or other podcasts or on the radio, just maybe just phrased differently. Does that make sense? Like we may ask it one way on the podcast, and maybe it's phrased differently to Eberflus or Waldron during the week. But in terms of guidelines, just to give you a peek behind the curtain. So, like Thursday is coordinator day. It usually goes Eric Washington, Shane Waldron, Richard Hightower, all in order. on Thursdays, those usually run anywhere between 9 and 12 minutes, but at the same time is open locker room. So you have media members kind of running back and forth and doing different things.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. But I would take issue with the idea that these questions don't get asked. I would encourage you maybe to go back, listen to last week's podcast, and then listen to Matt Eberflus's conference call with reporters just a couple hours later, because I feel like those questions were asked almost immediately the same day. With the coordinators, it's a little bit trickier because they don't talk till Thursday, so you have time that passes. Like John said, there's a logistical issue with the locker room being open at the same time. You can't be in two places at once. But I would actually say, I thought Waldron was asked all the questions that needed to be asked last week. Regardless. But there's really no guidelines other than don't be a jerk. Like there's still a level of respect that and it works both ways. Sometimes you see those viral moments where the coaches kind of go off on the reporters too, and then that usually ends up in
I think Doug Peterson just had one.
Yeah, yesterday. So you don't want it to ever get to that point, and I think there's a mutual level of respect that needs to be shared. And honestly, I think with this coaching staff so far, that's really not been an issue.
Also, I think there's some questions that you're not going to get answers to.
Sure,
especially if it's something scheme-wise, where they'll hide behind the answer as well. That's competitive advantage. We don't want to do that.
Example, Shane, are you going to let Doug Kramer get a carry? He's not going to say yes.
He may smile, make a joke.
Yeah. I mean, we might get a funny moment out of it, but that in general, that's a question that if you're going to even ask that question, it's going to be right at the end of the press conference, just like for a laugh. But you're not going to waste somebody else's question by throwing that one in there, because he's not going to be like, oh yeah, we actually have that as play 14 on the call sheet this week.
All right, we got one more from Aztag09. Bear down, Hoge Jahns. Thoughts on Gervon Dexter through the first 4 games? I know you're very high.
Like I said earlier, 3 sacks is good. I'd still like a little bit more consistency. I'd still like to see more consistent penetration. But production's production. And I think it's a very good sign that he's off to the start that he is statistically.
It's been better than last year. He's a young player playing a different position, asked to do different things than he did in college. He's changed his physical makeup. It's not going to be perfect, but it's good to see. It's good just to see production follow some of the progress that you may or may not see from him.
Yeah, 100%. All right. I think that's going to do it. Bears 2-2. Kind of bringing this podcast full circle. It's probably sort of where we thought they would be. Maybe a small chance they'd be 3-1. What you wanted to avoid was falling to 1-3 and really kind of getting behind. It was a big game yesterday. And now you got 2 winnable games coming up. Probably 2 games you're going to be favored in. Although I will say, not to get ahead, the Jags, believe it or not, are actually favored this week. I'm forgetting who they
favored this week in terms of looking ahead in 2 weeks.
They play the Colts. They have the Colts at home. The Jaguars, despite being winless, the Colts just beating the Steelers. The Jaguars are 2.5-point favorite, at least as I checked last night. So I still think the Jags are viewed as sort of this underachieving team that's not going to be. Whereas like the Panthers suck. Like you should be able to beat the Panthers this week, although they've been definitely more frisky since Andy Dalton took over at quarterback. But I don't really look at this game any different than I did the Panthers game last year when they came to Soldier Field on a Thursday night. And that was one that you had to win. Feel the same way about this one this week. Get back above 500. Head to London. Have a great week there. Go into your bye at 4-2. You would certainly take that.
100%.
A little 3-game win streak. But this is the NFL and anything can happen. of course. Thanks for being here. Follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns. You can follow the show as well at Hoge Jahns. And go to HogeJahns.com to get all of our merch. We will be back on Wednesday to break down all of your midweek happenings at Hallis Hall. And then again on Friday, we preview Bears and Panthers going into the weekend. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please also subscribe to the podcast, rate and review. We appreciate all the love as we move into our 800s era. Johns, we are in our 800s era on this podcast. Again, just to bring it all.
We're like the Mercedes Lewis of podcasting.
Yeah, you didn't get the Swift reference there, but that's cool.
Oh, good thing I didn't.
Cheers, everybody. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.
See ya.